2020, you had a very, very serious accident.
Yeah.
Which was unfortunately at the time of the pandemic. So we're all trapped inside anyway. You were on an electric motorbike where you had an accident and broke your back in 3 places. You had a very intense 6-hour surgery, which included having a metal rod put into your back to stabilize it. And according to all the accounts that I've heard, you were very lucky to be alive.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. It was pretty bad.
I think that's an understatement from what I've heard.
Again, there is a silver lining because I wasn't fit prior. I thought I was fit. I looked okay, but I wasn't fit. I was really getting up. Even though I changed my hours, I was still getting up, going straight to the telephone, and I would sit by that telephone for hours and hours and hours. And I really wasn't getting the steps in. I wasn't eating properly and all this kind of stuff. So once it was a bad accident, and I knew it was bad the second it happened. And the recovery was pretty difficult. However, I had a fantastic nurse, and she was like, you know how a cuckoo just pushes the bird out. Mm-hmm. She just one day said to me, just get out into your garden, and even if you can walk 20 paces, just do it. And I did it, and it was hard. And then I just built up. And then I started to build up my step count over time. And then when I really had to put the proper steps in per day, my feet were just like ragged because they weren't used to walking. So it was weird. If I had to go back in time again to get to where I am today, I would have gone through that again. As bad as it was, the upside was worth it, because if I hadn't broken my back, I don't think I would have ever realized how unfit I really, really was.
You spoke about, because the pandemic is an interesting time to have a debilitating injury like that, because you're trapped inside as it is. When you have a back injury or any severe injury like that, you're immobilized.
Yeah.
And all of this has a really significant impact on your mental health, because I've sat here with people who have had a back injury, like Craig David. I remember him telling me the darkest depression he had in his life was when he injured his back and couldn't move much anymore.
Yeah.
And how that has a knock-on effect of all things. But then you have the pandemic as well, which is keeping you indoors. And I heard you're inside for a long period of time because of that injury, because of the pandemic. You stayed in your house there for a long time. Was it almost a year or something crazy?
Yeah, nearly a year.
If I was a fly on the wall in that house during that time, what would I have seen?
Well, again, the hardest thing was, because, the guy had to, it got so bad, I had to sign a form, just before I had the operation, which was, if this doesn't work out, will you allow us to switch to the machine? Or I'm like, well, that's encouraging just before I'm about to go under. So I'm thinking, God, this could be it. But I was in so much pain. I was just thinking, just please, just get me out of this pain. And the first 3 days afterwards, I was like, actually, it's painful, but not as bad as I thought. And the doctor said, yeah, you've got pain receptors in your spine right now. They're going to wear off in a couple of days. Get ready. And when they wore off, it was like, whoa, it was unbelievable. And then I'm on all these pain-killing drugs, blah, blah, blah. And do you know what I'm doing? I'm phoning my lawyer saying, where's my will? And then I'm also trying to sell a show at the same time. Unfortunately, my PA knew I was just all over the place. And she was saying, yeah, the person you're trying to get hold of isn't available right now. But, obviously I was just so delirious. I was just all over the place for the first 3 days, because after a traumatic injury like that, you are. But I had a fantastic surgeon. I really got off the painkillers much earlier than they thought I would, like a month earlier. And that was, for me, really significant. And then when I started to put the steps in and getting up to 20, 30,000 steps a day, without my feet falling apart, it was like, actually, it was worth it, genuinely worth it.
Is this when you first went to therapy? Around this time?
It was, yeah. And I think it was probably because after that injury, and all the time I'd had to think about things, I really had a chance to kind of really think things through and go, it would be actually crazy for me not to go to therapy after everything I've gone through, and talk to somebody who is an expert, who you can trust, who can advise you. And it's a bit like really going to the gym. It's like, wow, you feel great afterwards. Yeah. And it's, you think initially, it's going to be a bit embarrassing. How do I start the conversation? But they're so good and they're so well trained at what they do. It gave me, I don't know, it just made me feel better in so many ways, because stuff that used to bother me, I would talk to them about, and you almost kind of get the answer, it's going to be, but someone needs to tell you other than yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know the answer, but you kind of need someone to validate it.
Yeah. Did you go to I've been to therapy. I've also been to therapy with my partner, do couples therapy every week.
I've done that.
Which is really useful.
Yeah, my God, ours would make the best reality show on the planet. Keep thinking
it's a good idea.
Seriously.
What was when you went to the therapist, was it because of how you were feeling following the back injury and the pandemic? Or was it just more broadly that you hadn't processed a lot of things throughout the last couple of decades? Was there a specific issue you went with?
That's a good question. I think I met a few people who were in the entertainment business, and we spoke a lot about how do you deal with this, how do you deal with that, and they all, two people in particular, said we went into therapy, and they said, have you tried it? And I went, no. And they said, try it once, see how you feel. And when I went, it was very interesting, because what you realize is that most of us have actually bottled stuff up, somewhere in our bodies, and it's like a release. And we all need that release, because there's something in your brain which you haven't spoken about, or something that's bothered you and you don't know who to talk about, or whatever. And actually, it's not a weakness. If anything, it's a strength to be able to admit that we are all vulnerable, that none of us are perfect, that we do need help. And there are people much smarter than us who can just help you. And why not take advantage of that? Because I promise you, I don't believe there's a single person in the world who would go to a great therapist and then walk out and go, yeah, I didn't need that. But we all do, right? In the same way, we're discovering things about nutrition and, food and the importance of that. And, a lot of what we were talking about, social media and some of the negativities, all these things, we're not programmed, I don't believe, to deal with so much so quickly. So we've got to find, different ways of not just sorting your bodies out, but sorting your mental. It's not even mental health. It's just life. It's that. Just having someone who's trained to give you better priorities, other things to think about, things you don't have forgotten about, all those kind of things I learned through doing it.
Has it had a big impact on you?
Massive. Yeah, massive. Yeah. And in fact, I got out the habit only because of my schedule, and I'm due back, I think, in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. And I literally can't wait, because I really do think I found someone special. His name's Justin. If he's listening, Justin, you are the best. I adore you. And I consider him, a friend. I really, really like him and respect him.
Sometimes we don't get to say to people how much we appreciate them and all the impact we've had on them until they're gone. Yeah. Because especially as men, sometimes we can be a little, I'm just speaking for myself here. I can I can feel a little bit, I think how I was raised, a little bit about expressing my emotions
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So Justin, for example, what would you say to Justin as in terms of how he's helped you if he was listening?
I think he if we had a list of what's the most important things, the top 10 list of priorities, he's changed the order of what would have been my 1 to 10. He's shuffled the order. So something that might have been number 8 might have become number 3 now. And he's simplified my way of thinking, which is, Simon, he said to me, Simon, I think you actually overthink a lot of things, by the way. And I'm like, actually, you've got a point, I do, actually. And a lot of what, we've been talking about today, a lot of this has come from working with Justin. And like I said, having absolute no embarrassment whatsoever about the fact that I needed it. I think, like I said, a lot of people, in my opinion, do need help, full stop, at some point in their lives. And it is nothing to be embarrassed about. It isn't.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.